Inside one of the most radioactive places on Earth, something is alive, not surviving, not hiding in a corner, feeding off the radiation itself. In 1986, Reactor 4 exploded. A radioactive cloud spread across Europe. An entire city was abandoned overnight, and the assumption was simple: nothing would ever live here again. That assumption was wrong, because deep inside the reactor, where radiation levels are still lethal, scientists found a fungus growing on the walls. And it wasn't just surviving the radiation, it was growing toward it. What this organism is doing rewrites what we thought was possible for life in the universe. So grab a snack, adjust your chair, hit subscribe, and watch this video as we explain how life always finds a way. 1986, the silence after the explosion. When Reactor 4 exploded on April 26, 1986, it released 400 times more radiation than the Hiroshima bomb. The area immediately around it, a forest of pine trees, turned a deep rusted orange-brown within days. Scientists later named it the Red Forest. It became one of the most radioactive places on Earth. Soil poisoned, water contaminated, large animals gone. And for a while, it did exactly what we expected. It killed. But then something smaller started creeping back. Bacteria, fungi, insects. The kind of life that doesn't wait for permission. Even in highly contaminated soil, microbial activity began recovering within just a few years of the disaster. Not thriving, not yet, but surviving, and that was just the beginning. 1990s, the return. By the late 1990s, something no one predicted started happening. The animals came back: wolves, wild boar, deer, even lynx. Not because the radiation had gone, because the humans had. Without people, the exclusion zone accidentally became one of the largest wildlife reserves in Europe. And for a moment, it almost looked like recovery. Here's where it gets uncomfortable. Researchers started noticing the animals weren't the same. Studies on barn swallows, and published in peer-reviewed journals, including work by scientists Timothy Mousseau and Anders Müller, documented visible deformities. Bent beaks, misshapen feathers, patches of albinism, tumors. More subtly, birds in high radiation areas showed measurably reduced brain sizes and lower survival rates across multiple independent studies. Cataracts, reduced fertility. But here's what the headlines missed. Not everything got worse. Some species declined, others kept going, and a few started doing something that shouldn't be possible. 2010s, radioactive evolution. By the 2010s, scientists weren't just documenting damage anymore, they were seeing something else. Adaptation. Some bird populations in the exclusion zone began producing measurably higher levels of antioxidants, the chemicals cells use to neutralize radiation damage. Their bodies were adjusting, imperfectly, slowly, but enough to change the survival calculus. Certain microorganism strains showed resistance not just to radiation, but to multiple forms of DNA damage simultaneously. Radiation wasn't just killing life, it was accelerating evolution. And then, inside the reactor itself, scientists found something that made all of this look minor. The fungus that eats radiation. Go back to the reactor, not the forests outside, not the wildlife. Inside, where radiation levels are still extreme, where no human can safely stay for long. In the early 1990s, scientists found something growing on the walls. Black, patchy, alive. At first, no one was shocked. Fungi grow in extreme environments, but then the data came back and something didn't add up. It wasn't growing away from the radiation, it was growing toward it. The species is called Cladosporium sphaerospermum. It's rich in melanin, the same pigment that protects your skin from UV damage. But in this fungus, melanin appears to do something far stranger. In controlled experiments, when exposed to high radiation, these fungi didn't weaken. They grew, faster, stronger. In some tests, growth rates were several times higher than normal. Scientists believe the melanin is interacting with ionizing radiation and converting it into chemical energy usable for growth. It has a name: radiosynthesis, a potential biological parallel to photosynthesis, but using radiation instead of sunlight. Radiosynthesis is a genuinely documented hypothesis supported by published research, including a 2007 study in PLOS ONE by Ekaterina Dadachova et al. It is not yet fully confirmed at a mechanistic level, and the scientific community continues to investigate the precise molecular process. Let that sit for a second. Life, in one of the most hostile environments on Earth, didn't just adapt to radiation. It found a way to profit from it. Now here's where this stops being a weird biology story. from Chernobyl to the International Space Station. Radiation isn't just a problem at Chernobyl, it's one of the biggest unsolved barriers to human space travel. Outside Earth's magnetic field, cosmic radiation can damage DNA, dramatically increase cancer risk, and make long-duration missions like a trip to Mars genuinely life-threatening. Shielding works, but shielding is heavy. And in space, mass is one of the most expensive things you can carry. So scientists asked a different question. What if you used something that thrives in radiation instead of trying to block it? In 2018, samples of Cladosporium sphaerospermum were sent to the International Space Station as part of a formal experiment. Over 30 days in orbit, the fungus grew and measurably reduced radiation levels in the area directly beneath it. Not by a massive amount, but enough to prove the concept. A self-growing, self-repairing living radiation shield. What makes this even stranger? The fungus grew faster in the space environment than it does on Earth. The very conditions that threaten human life appear to actively benefit this organism. Chernobyl was never supposed to be an experiment. It was a catastrophe, a failure of engineering and of human judgment, a place we were supposed to leave behind. But instead, it became something else entirely, an accidental laboratory where we watched life do what it always does: adapt, survive, change, and sometimes do something we don't fully understand yet. The most unsettling part of this story isn't that something survived Chernobyl, it's that something looked at one of the most hostile environments on Earth and found a way to use it. If life can do that here, what could it be doing out there in the vast cosmos? Quick question before you go. If radiosynthesis is real and scalable, do you think we should be sending fungus to Mars before we send humans? Drop your answer below. I read every single one.